All right, let's get ready to climb high because today we are doing a deep dive on the Hinowa Light Lift 1570.
Literally taking us to the top
Yeah, and the source material that we have,
is the user manual,
yeah,
which you sent in wanting to know more
it
about.
looks like a fascinating machine.
It really is. This
Oh,
is not your average stepladder. We are
yeah.
talking about
Right.
a self-propelled,
Yeah.
tracked platform that can lift people and equipment to serious heights. And the manual you provided isn't just about how to use it.
Right.
It really dives deep into the technology and the pretty meticulous safety measures that go into making it work.
Yeah, the level of detail in this manual is incredible.
It's really something
And I think one of the things that jumps out right away is this emphasis on safety.
right from the get-go.
Yeah, it's almost like they're saying, look, this machine is a powerful tool, but it needs to be treated with respect.
Definitely.
So for example, they've got 3 levels of safety alerts.
Yeah, attention, danger, warning, and note, each with its own symbol so you can't miss them.
Gotcha, so like a traffic light system
Kind of, yeah,
for
exactly.
potential hazards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't just say wear safety gear.
Yeah.
They get really specific about what you need. Hard hat, safety glasses, gloves,
Oh yeah, the works.
the whole 9 yards.
I was kind of surprised to see acoustic earmuffs on the list.
Yeah, I mean, those hydraulic systems can get pretty loud, especially when you're operating the machine for extended periods.
Right.
So protecting your hearing is essential. And it kind of shows that Hinowa is thinking about the long-term well-being
Right. Right.
of the operator.
It's like they don't want you to
Yeah.
end up with hearing loss
Exactly.
from operating this thing.
Yeah.
So that's good.
It's a good thing.
And speaking of operator responsibility, they are really serious about making sure that anyone using this machine knows what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about reading the manual, it's
Mhm.
about understanding it
Understanding it.
and getting proper training,
Training is key.
right?
They even say that there needs to be a specialist operator present on the ground during operation.
Wow.
Someone who's not only familiar with the machine, but also knows how to handle emergency situations.
So like a built-in safety net?
Yeah, absolutely. Someone there to keep an eye on things.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's sort of unpack the machine itself.
Yeah. Let's dive into the nuts and bolts.
The manual has this fantastic diagram
This is great.
that breaks down all the key components.
Mhm.
And, it really does give you a visual roadmap
It does.
to understanding how this thing works.
Yeah.
So you've got the tracked undercarriage for navigating uneven terrain.
That's key for a machine like this.
Right.
It's got to be able to handle all sorts of ground conditions.
Right. And then the revolving turret for positioning the platform precisely where you need it.
That's a great feature for precision work.
Yeah.
You can really get into those tight spaces. And then, of course, the heart of the machine, the engine or the battery pack.
This is where it gets really interesting.
And here's where things get interesting, right?
Yes.
Because they offer both a traditional petrol diesel engine and a lithium battery pack option.
That's right. You've got options.
I mean, it's not every day you see electric power in heavy machinery like this.
This is definitely a sign of the times. It's all about sustainability these days.
Right.
And they're clearly thinking ahead.
It makes a lot of sense.
Quieter, emission-free operation, especially in enclosed or sensitive environments, it's a game changer.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a big advantage.
Definitely.
Okay, so as we continue our tour of the Hinowa Light Lift 1570, we can't overlook all these decals.
Oh, the decals, there's so many.
All over this thing.
It's like a visual language you have to learn.
Yeah, it's like learning a secret language.
That's a good way to put it.
But it's a language that's, crucial
Absolutely.
for understanding the machine's operation and safety limits. Yeah, they're not just for decoration.
Right.
They convey important information.
Some are straightforward, like the ones that indicate lifting points.
Those are pretty self-explanatory.
But there are a few that really caught my eye. For example, there's one that shows the sense of moving undercarriage.
Ah, yes, that
And
one.
it's basically telling you which way is forward.
Because this thing doesn't steer like your typical vehicle.
Yeah, it doesn't have a steering wheel.
Open
It's
them.
all about controlling those tracks.
Exactly. You are controlling the movement of individual tracks.
Right.
It's a different way of thinking about direction and spatial awareness.
Yeah. And it's not just about knowing how to move. It's also about knowing how much you can lift.
Which brings us to the all-important lifting point and forbidden lifting point decals.
Right. These are critical for anyone who's involved in transporting this machine or even just maneuvering it around.
Yeah, misinterpreting those could lead to instability or even damage.
Yeah, you could really mess things up.
They are visual reminders of the machine's physical limitations.
And the importance of adhering to proper lifting procedures.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to overload it
Nope.
or lift it from the wrong spot.
You could damage the machine, or worse, cause an accident.
It's fascinating how much information they can pack into these simple visual cues.
They're very effective.
But let's move on to maybe the unsung heroes of this machine, the safety devices.
Yes, the silent guardians working behind the scenes.
Yeah, they're like the silent guardians working behind the scenes to keep the operator safe.
And the manual doesn't just list them, it actually explains how they function.
Yeah.
Like the battery cutout switch, for instance.
Yeah.
It's like a master power switch,
Yeah.
isolating the battery in case of an electrical fault.
So that prevents shocks or fires.
Exactly. It's a crucial safety measure.
It seems like a simple thing, but when you're dealing with powerful electrical systems, having that fail-safe mechanism is, it's pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to take any chances. Yeah. And then you have things like the pressure relief valves. These are kind of like safety valves on a pressure cooker.
Okay.
Releasing excess pressure in the hydraulic system to prevent leaks or bursts.
I've heard of hydraulic hoses bursting, and it sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, not good.
So these pressure relief valves are there to prevent that.
Exactly. They act as a safety net.
Gotcha.
And then, to prevent the platform from dropping, in case of a hose failure, they've got cylinder stop valves.
Wow.
These act like brakes on the hydraulic cylinders, holding the platform in place even if there's a loss of pressure.
So even if a hose bursts, you're not going to suddenly plummet to the ground.
Nope. The cylinder stop valves will hold you steady.
That's impressive.
Yeah, they've really thought of everything.
Now, all these safety features are impressive, but what about monitoring the load in the basket?
Yes, that's a crucial aspect.
That's got to be a major concern.
It definitely is.
You don't want to overload it and have it tip over or something.
Right.
So how do they handle that?
They use what's called a basket load sensor.
Okay.
And this uses strain gauges.
Okay.
Think of them like incredibly sensitive scales
Gotcha.
that actually measure the weight in the basket.
So if the load exceeds the safe limit...
An alarm sounds, and all platform movements are locked down,
Wow.
preventing a potential overload situation.
So it's like having a built-in safety net that prevents the operator from pushing the machine beyond its limits.
Exactly. It's all about staying within those safe operating parameters.
It's incredible how much technology goes into something that seems so simple on the surface.
Yeah, you don't really think about it until you start digging into the details.
And of course, the manual stresses the importance of regularly checking these safety components.
Absolutely, that's key.
Especially after any impacts or operations that could potentially damage them.
Yeah, you want to make sure everything is in tip-top shape.
You don't want to rely on a damaged safety system in a critical situation.
Nope, not at all.
That would be bad. Okay, speaking of staying in control, let's talk about the machine's controls.
All right, let's get behind the controls.
They've really gone all out in terms of usability.
Yeah, they've made it very user-friendly.
So the remote control is like the operator's command center.
That's where all the action happens.
It can be operated from the basket, the ground, even in emergency situations.
That's right, you've got options.
And it's designed for intuitive use. They even included a display.
Yeah, that display has really helped it.
With icons and information about the machine's status, so the operator has, real-time feedback.
Exactly, you know exactly what's going on at all times.
It's really cool how they've incorporated technology to enhance both safety and usability.
It's a great combination.
But I'm curious about those joysticks. They look pretty basic.
They might seem basic, but they are more sophisticated than you might think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they offer proportional control, meaning the further you push the joystick, the faster the movement.
Gotcha.
So you can make very precise adjustments,
That's a nice touch.
especially when you're working at height.
Right, because you don't want to be jerky.
You want smooth, controlled movements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about all those buttons on the remote control?
Yes, the buttons, they are a key part of the control system.
Complex.
They might seem that way, but each button has a specific function.
Okay.
And some even have dual functions,
Really?
depending on how long you press them.
Oh, wow. So like a long press versus a short press?
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
So you've got buttons for raising and lowering the stabilizers, extending the tracks,
Right.
even preheating the engine in cold weather.
Wow. They've thought of everything.
They really have.
It's all about putting the control you need right at your fingertips.
Exactly. Giving the operator the tools they need to work safely and efficiently.
Okay, so let's say you've got the machine prepped.
All right, we're ready to go.
You're wearing all your safety gear.
Safety first.
You're ready to start working.
What's the first step?
What's the first step?
Well, before you even think about firing up the engine,
Okay.
the manual stresses the importance of a thorough risk assessment of the work area.
So you're not just jumping in.
Nope, you got to plan ahead.
You're really thinking about
Yeah,
what could go wrong.
exactly. It's all about anticipating potential hazards and taking steps to mitigate them.
Gotcha.
So, what are some of the biggest risks they highlight?
Well, I mean, I imagine working at height comes with its own set of challenges.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the most serious risks, especially when you're working your power lines, is electrocution.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, they actually provide a detailed table
Okay.
with safety distances based on voltage.
So telling you exactly how far you need to stay back from those lines.
Exactly, to want to get anywhere near them.
Electricity and heavy machinery, not a good mix.
Nope, not at all.
But what about weather conditions? I'm sure wind and rain can play a role
Oh, absolutely.
in safety, especially at height.
Especially at height.
So how do they address that in the manual?
They actually use the Beaufort scale to assess wind speed
Okay.
and its potential impact on the machine's stability.
So no working in a hurricane.
Nope, that's a definite no-go.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, and they also talk about rain.
Right, because rain can affect the stability of the ground,
Absolutely. It can make things very slippery.
compromising the machine's, stabilization.
It's not just about operator comfort here. It's about the physics of how the machine interacts with the environment.
Right, so they're really thinking about
Big.
the bigger picture.
The whole picture.
Yeah, it's not just about keeping the operator dry.
Exactly. It's about keeping everyone safe.
And it's not just about the weather, right? The work area itself needs to be suitable for the machine.
That's right. They are very specific about the type of ground this machine is designed for.
Okay,
Compact and level.
so no working on a steep slope.
Nope. They actually provide the maximum allowed ground slope.
Wow, they really have thought of everything.
They really have.
And then to top it all off, they have this summary table of operator safety standards,
Ah, yes. That table is a great resource.
outlining key things to remember during operation.
Like avoiding sudden movements,
Uh,
loading and unloading the basket only from the ground,
okay,
and never ever using ladders to extend the working height.
that seems like a good rule of thumb.
It's all about working smart and staying safe.
Right, not taking any unnecessary risks.
Exactly.
Speaking of risks, what happens when things go wrong?
Ah, the dreaded emergency scenario.
Because let's face it, machines can malfunction,
They can and do.
and operators can make mistakes.
We are all human after all.
So how does the manual address these less than ideal situations?
Well, they have very detailed instructions for emergency maneuvers.
Okay,
They
good.
cover everything from engine failure to operator incapacitation, and they provide step-by-step guides for safely bringing the platform back to the ground.
That's reassuring to know, because I have to admit this section of the manual made me a little nervous.
I can understand that.
Just thinking about being stuck up in the air.
Yeah, it's not
Well,
fun.
With a malfunctioning machine, it's like something out of a movie.
But it's a good reminder that operating this type of machinery, while incredibly useful, does come with inherent risks.
Right.
That's why they have different procedures depending on whether you're in the basket or on the ground.
So if you're in the basket and something goes wrong, what do you do?
Well, for example, if you need to make an emergency descent from the basket,
Okay.
there's a button on the remote control that can initiate that.
Okay.
But that relies on the machine's electrical system
Right.
still being powered.
But what if the electrical system is the problem?
That's where the safety bypass key comes in.
Okay, this is the part that intrigued me.
That's a very interesting feature.
So this key allows you to override certain safety systems,
In case of an emergency, yes.
but it's not something you use lightly.
No, they make that very clear. They have this whole procedure for removing the lead seal from the key and then contacting an authorized service center afterwards
Yeah.
to explain why you had to use it.
It's like a break glass in case of emergency kind of thing.
Exactly. It underscores the seriousness of using the bypass key.
So even in an emergency, you need to be aware of what the controls can and can't do.
Absolutely. You can't just assume that you can magically fix everything.
And the emergency controls on the ground.
Yes.
They don't allow you to move the aerial part of the machine,
That's right.
just the tracks and stabilizers.
Yes, you can move the machine itself, but not the arm or the basket.
So even with all these emergency procedures, there are still inherent risks.
There are, and that's something that every operator needs to keep in mind.
Right. It's not a foolproof system.
Nope, it's a tool to help you manage risk, not eliminate it entirely.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, from safety features to emergency procedures, but we haven't even touched on the engine and battery specifics yet.
Right, we need to dive into those details.
I'm especially curious about that lithium setup.
Yeah, the lithium battery pack is definitely a hot topic these days.
What are some of the quirks there?
Well, starting and stopping the petrol-diesel engine is pretty straightforward, but the electric motor has its own unique set of procedures.
Okay.
But where it really stands out is the level of detail they provide about charging the lithium batteries.
Right.
It's like they're anticipating every possible question an operator might have.
It's pretty impressive, actually.
It is.
Okay, so let's dive into this world of lithium batteries and see what makes them tick.
All right, let's get energized. They really go in depth about the charge indicator on the display,
Okay.
the different LEDs on the battery charger and what they mean.
Right.
They even recommend charging the batteries for at least 12 hours once a month, even if the machine isn't being used.
What, even when not in use?
Yeah,
Why is that?
it's all about maintaining the health and longevity of the battery pack. Lithium batteries have a certain shelf life.
Okay.
Proper charging practices can help maximize their lifespan and their performance.
That makes sense.
It's kind of like keeping your car battery charged, even if you're not driving it for a while.
Right.
You want to make sure it's topped up and ready to go.
Yeah, keep it healthy.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they're not shy about highlighting the safety precautions associated with lithium batteries,
Right.
especially when it comes to handling them in potentially dangerous conditions.
Yeah, I'm seeing a pattern here.
What's that?
Safety first, always.
Always, always.
With this machine.
Yeah, they have a whole section on what to do if you encounter hot cells, vented cells, even exploded cells.
Right, I remember seeing that.
And if there's a fire, they're very specific about the types of extinguishers that are effective for lithium battery fires.
Okay.
So they emphasize having the right safety equipment on hand just in case.
It's a sobering reminder that these batteries, while incredibly powerful, also require a heightened level of, respect and caution.
Absolutely.
It's not just about knowing how to use them,
Yeah.
it's about understanding the potential risks involved.
Exactly. You got to be prepared for anything. Now, shifting gears a little bit from power to maintenance.
Okay.
This manual really goes above and beyond.
In what way?
They've got specific inspection and maintenance schedules laid out daily, weekly, monthly, annual, even structural.
Wow.
They really cover all the bases.
It's like they've anticipated every possible point of wear and tear and provided a roadmap for keeping the machine running smoothly.
Yeah, it's all about preventative maintenance, staying ahead of potential problems.
So this goes way beyond just checking the oil and tire pressure.
Oh, absolutely.
What are some of the things they recommend?
Well, for example, they recommend a comprehensive inspection after the first 2,000 operating hours,
Okay.
and then follow-up checks every 1,000 hours after that.
That's pretty thorough.
It is, yeah. It's a level of detail you don't always see.
And they don't just gloss over the basics either.
Go.
They go into detail about general periodical checks. Replacing the hydraulic oil filter cartridge after 50 operating hours.
That's important.
Okay.
You want to keep that hydraulic fluid clean and free of contaminants.
So why 50 hours? Is that just a standard interval for hydraulic systems?
It's a good rule of thumb.
Okay.
It ensures that the oil is replaced before it starts to break down and cause problems.
And they even cover the maintenance of lead-acid batteries.
Ah, yes, the trusty lead-acid batteries.
Which I thought was interesting because the machine is primarily powered by the lithium battery pack.
Right.
So what's the deal with the lead-acid batteries?
Well, they serve as a backup power source for critical systems.
Okay.
So things like the emergency descent system.
Gotcha.
They rely on those lead-acid batteries to function properly.
So it's like having a reliable backup generator for your house.
That's a good analogy.
You might not need it often,
Mhm.
but when you do, you're glad it's there.
Absolutely.
And the manual provides instructions on how to maintain those lead-acid batteries to ensure they're ready to go when needed.
Exactly. You want to keep them topped up and in good condition.
Okay.
Beyond the specific tasks, though, they really emphasize this proactive mindset when it comes to maintenance.
Right. They're really advocating for preventative maintenance
Absolutely.
rather than waiting for something to break down,
Exactly.
which makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Okay. But speaking of moving this machine,
Yeah.
it's not exactly something you can just throw in the back of a pickup truck and drive off with.
Definitely not.
So how do you transport something this large and complex?
Well, the manual has a dedicated section outlining safe transport procedures.
Okay, so what are some of the key things they highlight?
Well, they start by discussing whether or not you should remove the basket for transport.
Okay, so they don't automatically assume you need to disassemble it?
Nope.
So when would you need to remove the basket?
They recommend removing it only if you need to squeeze through a particularly narrow opening during transport.
Okay.
Otherwise, the machine is transported as a single unit.
Makes sense. Less disassembly means less chance of something going wrong during reassembly.
Exactly. You want to keep things as simple as possible.
And they go into detail about how to load and unload the machine using ramps
Yeah, they even provide a diagram of the required side profiles for containment.
to make sure it doesn't slide off the ramp.
Exactly.
They really are thinking of everything.
They are.
Safety seems to be the recurring theme in this manual.
It's their top priority.
And when it comes to lifting the machine, they're very specific about the lifting points.
Absolutely. They don't want you to damage the machine or, worse, cause an accident.
They tell you exactly where to attach the lifting straps or chains.
Yes, and they also specify the minimum capacity requirements for the lifting equipment.
So you're not using something that's too weak for the job.
Exactly. You need to make sure your lifting gear is up to the task.
And of course, they emphasize securing the machine properly on the trailer using tie rods.
Yeah, and complying with all road traffic regulations.
It's amazing how much thought and planning goes into something as seemingly simple as moving a machine from one location to another.
It's all about safety and efficiency.
Yeah.
You want to make sure the machine arrives at its destination in the same condition it left in.
Okay, but for all the detail we've covered so far, there's one area we haven't even touched on yet, that mysterious service menu you mentioned earlier.
Yes, the service menu.
This is the part that really intrigued me.
It's a hidden gem.
So what is this service menu and how do you access it?
Well, it's basically a special menu on the remote control
Okay.
that gives you access to a wealth of information about the machine's status and performance.
So it's like a secret diagnostic tool for technicians.
Exactly.
What kind of information can you access through this menu?
Well, it's divided into 4 main sections:
Okay.
input language errors and working hours.
All right, let's break those down one by one.
Okay.
Starting with input, what's that all about?
The input menu is fascinating.
Okay.
It's like a live feed of data from the various sensors and controls on the machine.
So technicians can use this to see exactly what's happening inside the machine in real time.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
incredibly useful for troubleshooting.
Right. No more guessing games.
Nope. You can see exactly which sensors are triggering and how the controls are responding.
That's got to save a lot of time and headaches.
It does.
Okay, what about the language menu? Is that just for changing the language on the display?
Exactly.
So if you're operating the machine in a different country?
Yeah, you can switch to a language that you understand.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm most curious about the errors menu.
The errors menu. That's where things get really interesting.
What kind of errors can it detect?
It can tell you the status of those Gubble sensors we talked about earlier,
Okay.
indicating whether they're functioning correctly or showing a fault.
So it's like a built-in early warning system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It can alert you to potential problems before they become major issues.
That's fantastic, and it doesn't stop there, right?
Nope. It can also provide error codes related to the battery charger, inverter, and battery pack.
Wow.
So instead of having to guess what's wrong, you get specific error codes that can point you in the right direction for repairs.
It's like having a built-in mechanic.
It is, yeah.
That's incredibly helpful.
It takes the guesswork out of troubleshooting.
Okay, and lastly, the working hours menu. What's that for?
The working hours menu simply keeps track of the total operating hours of the machine.
Which is important for those maintenance schedules we discussed earlier.
Exactly. You need to know how many hours the machine has been in operation to determine when certain maintenance tasks need to be performed.
It all ties together, doesn't it?
It does.
From the initial safety checks to the meticulous maintenance procedures to the advanced diagnostics of the service menu, Hinowa has clearly thought of everything when it comes to the design, operation, and upkeep of this machine.
It's a well-engineered piece of equipment.
It really is.
And they've done a great job documenting everything in the manual.
It makes you realize just how much engineering and innovation goes into something that at first glance might seem like a simple piece of equipment.
There's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Absolutely.
So I think it's time to move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll reflect on what we've learned and consider what the future might hold for this fascinating machine and the industry as a whole.
All right, so we've spent a lot of time with this Hinowa Lightlift 1570 user manual.
We really dug deep into it.
We've covered just about everything.
From safety procedures to maintenance tasks, even that service menu.
I feel like I've gotten to know this machine inside and out.
Me too.
What stands out to you as the most impressive aspect?
Honestly, it's got to be the emphasis on safety.
Yeah.
It's woven into every aspect of this machine.
They really went above and beyond.
They didn't just slap some warning stickers on and call it a day.
Right.
They really thought through every potential hazard.
And engineered solutions to mitigate those risks.
Exactly. It's all about protecting the operator and anyone else in the vicinity of the machine.
Yeah, you can tell they're serious about safety.
Absolutely. And it's not just about safety either.
What else impressed you?
Well, the overall engineering and design are top-notch.
Yeah, it's a well-built machine.
The attention to detail is remarkable.
They didn't cut any corners.
They really put a lot of thought into every aspect of this machine.
And the manual is a testament to that.
It's one of the most comprehensive and well-written manuals I've ever seen.
It's not just a dry technical document.
It's almost like a textbook on how to operate and maintain this machine safely and effectively.
It's clear they want their users to be well-informed.
And to get the most out of their investment.
Right, because this is a significant investment.
It's not a cheap piece of equipment.
But beyond the technical details and the impressive engineering, what I find really fascinating is the glimpse into the future of heavy machinery.
That's a good point.
We're seeing a shift toward electric power.
The lithium battery pack is a game changer.
More sophisticated safety system.
Like that basket load sensor.
Even the integration of digital diagnostics.
That service menu is amazing.
It's like this machine is a microcosm of the larger technological advancements happening across the construction and industrial sectors.
Yeah, it's a sign of things to come.
We're seeing a convergence of mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and software development, all aimed at creating machines that are not only more powerful and efficient,
but also safer and more environmentally friendly.
It's an exciting time to be following these developments.
Absolutely. Who knows what the future holds?
What do you think the next generation of these machines will look like?
That's a great question.
Will we see even more automation?
Possibly even remote operation.
Yeah, where an operator can control the machine from a safe distance.
That would open up a whole new range of applications.
Especially in hazardous environments.
Exactly.
And with advancements in sensor technology and AI, we could even see machines that can perform certain tasks autonomously.
That's not science fiction anymore. It's becoming a reality.
It's mind-blowing.
It is.
And what about power sources?
Yeah.
Do you think lithium batteries will become the standard, eventually phasing out those traditional petrol and diesel engines?
I think it's a strong possibility.
As battery technology continues to improve?
We'll see longer run times, faster charging, and lower costs.
And coupled with the increasing demand for cleaner and quieter operation.
Lithium batteries could very well become the dominant power source for heavy machinery.
It's an exciting time to be watching this space, that's for sure.
Absolutely. The future of heavy machinery is bright.
But let's bring it back down to earth for a moment.
Okay.
We've talked about all this amazing technology and innovation, but it's important to remember that these are powerful machines that demand respect.
Safety should always be the top priority.
No matter how advanced these machines become.
Exactly.
So to anyone listening who might be operating a Hinowa Lightlift 1570,
or any similar machine,
read that manual, understand those warnings.
and never hesitate to ask for help if you need it.
Because safety is not something to be taken lightly.
It's paramount.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything there is to cover on the Hinowa Lightlift 1570.
It's been a fascinating deep dive.
It really has.
We've learned a lot.
And I hope our listeners have too. So until next time,
Stay curious
keep learning.
and always remember to operate safely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive on the Hinowa Lightlift 1570.
It's been a pleasure.